Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
From Network Nova Live, you are on the Friday Power Lunch. It's December 13th, 2024, our last show of the season. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. We will be coming back on January 3rd, so we're so glad you're in the room with us today. I'm Katherine White, your host, bringing you some great show today on the issues and the action. I'm so excited to have Norton here with us. And again, Susan Wagner will be also co-hosting because we fuel the grassroots community across Virginia and today, of course, nationally and coast to coast. We get things done and we make politics fun. Today's theme is the ghosts of grassroots, past, present, and future. This is going to be a little Friday Power Lunch holiday carol, so I hope you'll have fun along with us as we do some great work. I want to say hello. We're very excited to have Antonia Scatton back, messaging expert and author of Reframing America on Substack. We brought our A-team today, folks, just so you know. Lynlee Thorne, political director, Rural Ground Game, kicking some shit up. Okay, today, right, Lynlee? Glad you're here. And Nick Knudsen, founder, executive director of Dumbcast, talking about the future, all about digital and how we're going to bust through stuff and make sure that people hear us. So thank you for everybody being here today. So next steps, let's have a power chat. Bringing up favorite friends, Norton, and Susan Wagner, Markers Democracy. Hi, ladies. Are you excited about the Women's Summit? Have on your calendar, you altered your vacation, Susan, to join us.
I did. So you were talking about gifts, and
Yes.
this morning, Markers for Democracy had a gift. Our whole theme was ideas for good gifts, and also like inexpensive gifts. And one of the suggestions is to buy people memberships or subscriptions. So, a Patreon membership is a very nice, not too expensive gift to give to somebody else. Just here it is. Here's I bought you a Patreon subscription. Nice little gift. And certainly subscribing to any, giving a gift of a subscription,
Yes.
which today, because we have Antonia, Reframing America.
Exactly.
So, that's a very inexpensive gift, but it's the type of thing that I might not do for myself. But if somebody gave it to me as a gift, I'd be thrilled to get it and just add it to so I suggest that to pick up on that.
I love that idea. And I know that we have our t-shirts in our Badass Boutique. And Stair, if you want to share that link, Badass Ambassadors up there. And she's making sure people are behaving in the room as well. But yes, this great t-shirt I have today, it's really super and it's really fun. And on the back of it, it's kind of kick-ass on the back. It's about, from the comment of about tyranny, do not obey in advance. Oh. My screen is going a little crazy over here. So Fennell, how are you all doing? Let's talk about the ghosts of the past, present, and future. What's on your mind?
So I'll be really quick. I wanted to also say my t-shirt. It is the shirt that actually on the front it says "Democracy looks good on you," but I thought this morning it was important to see what was on the back. So these are all the things that democracy is, and so yeah. And we still have nuggets that have this on it, so you can get those. And I also just wanted to mention that, of course, Nick is here, and the digital drumbeat is also a Substack that you can give as a gift, and you'll hear more about that. But here's what I want to think about in terms of past, present, future. Someone in the chat, I saw it pop up, said that I'm looking for a reason to be optimistic. And you know what I thought? Every day is sort of a challenge. But when you think about what's ahead in terms of the future, the bit of good news that I have is that we are not our ancestors. We are not people from the past. We have learned so much. We know a few things now. So I think that's something to be optimistic about when you think about the grassroots, when you think about any of the challenges ahead. It is all stuff that we've done before. So we are just smarter. So that's what I think about the past, present, and future.
Yeah. How about you, Susan?
You know, I'm forever a student, so I look at this a little bit like going to college or university. You had your freshman year. It was a little hard, kind of challenges. Maybe you got a B minus, and you're not used to getting that because you're an A plus type of person, which I know everybody here is, because everybody who's on this obviously,
Say
is
plus.
able to, yep, A plus people. And but what do you do? If you buckle down, you spend a little bit more time in the library, you spend a little bit more time talking to people who can give you advice, you spend a little bit more time thinking about the challenges. And so that's really how I analogize this. And what I also want to say is, in terms of the grassroots, this is really an amazing opportunity. We really have an amazing opportunity. Unfortunately, things had to get so bad, and they often say that, right? That you can only get change when things get so bad. And I hope we all join together to think about how we can really make a contribution to going from sort of B plus to A plus, or B minus to A plus.
Because we got the A plus team.
Yes.
Sure. So yeah, I want to add in, when I thinking about this show and actually waking up thinking how we could frame the show up today with this fun allegory about the Christmas Carol around the holiday time, and going back with that for the ghost to show us what was in the past and then what presently is, and then for future yet to come. It really is good, because what I know is that a lot of times when we do selections, it's one thing after another. We do this work. We really need to take a time to recalibrate. I mean, we just can't just jump into the next thing. And that's what happens a lot. We literally in Virginia are already jumping into the next thing. So for me, when I think about going past, there's so much you can learn from that. And it's sort of like a deja vu moment for me. And I'm thinking, this election is a lot like, we've said this before about 217, but it's going to be so much different, because we'll be able to go back to see what we did. And I know we want to bring some concepts that work really well, like the Adopt a Candidate, program and all that. But we didn't know what we were doing. And there's a beauty to that too. We just kind of did it. And I think we still have to keep that spirit with us, that spirit of trusting us, trusting in our instincts. And also, we want to make sure that in this process, when we're really in this change moment, that we are empowering each other. We're respecting people's ideas, that people are heard, and we're pushing this sound up all the way to the top. And that is going to just blossom, I think, in different kind of leaders. With Lynlee Thorne will be here to talk about what that means when you want change. You have to be able to hear those voices at the table. So I don't know what your thoughts on that, when you're looking at where we need to go.
So I'll just start and then turn it over to Fennell. So you know how when you sit at a meeting, people have certain strategies or certain demarcations. So you know what? One of the things has to be, is this a new idea or is this an old idea? And if it's a new idea, it kind of gets a little bit more play now, because you just want to take it out of the old rule book. And so it's a new idea, and let's at least give that new idea a little bit more credence than we used to give the new ideas. For that long. Now, that doesn't always mean it's the best idea, but at least it should get a little bit, simply because it's new. And it's coming from a voice we haven't heard from. And I do think we all are very aware that we always do better when we hear from a voice we haven't heard from an angle that we haven't heard from. And I think Grassroots has a voice that hasn't really been heard, that needs to be heard, even if it's rejected for what our ideas are. But the voice has to be heard.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the thing that I just carry with me this year is that no one is right all the time. And I think that gets back to your point, Susan, of having the ability to listen and really think about, what should we be doing? But I think it's also a time to be bold and courageous. We've been here before, but we're here without guardrails. But I'm going to go right back to when we talked about Linda Hersham and we talked about the color of abolition. there are things there that we have the ability to really accelerate on, which will be so important during this particular period. So that's what I am. Nobody's right all the time, which means that there is a lot of room to listen to other people, to listen to ideas, to listen to tactics and strategies to figure out the way forward for the
Yeah.
president.
We definitely learned that, recently. So I want to remind everybody, not that I need to, but this year does have so many opportunity. We have the election coming up for mayor in New York. We have an election in Wisconsin. That Supreme Court race is going to be very contentious. So that's going to be something that we'll be working on this year. Pennsylvania is also going to have some judicial races, and New Jersey will be a lot like going back in time here. The ghost is taking me back. It's like Virginia was on the ballot, New Jersey was on the ballot. We will have also some really key races that Democracy Doc had pointed out, because we understand now as Democrats, we got to pay attention to local races, judge races, Supreme Court races, and that will all be going on the ballot. So all eyes will be on Virginia, though, because we're the bellwether. I think this is why we're having this conversation, and we should be leading it. And damn, if people are going to listen, to us, and that's my 2 cents. So how about that? So
yeah. So that's an excellent segue to our first guest, if we're ready.
Yeah, we're ready. I would love to bring up Antonia Scatton. She's here with us. She's a messaging expert. And I'll let you go ahead and introduce her further, Susan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Antonia, for joining us. We all know how busy you are, so we are very complimented that you're giving us some attention this morning. Just for the few people who might not know who you are, because I'm sure most people do, because we are all students of this, but Antonia is a messaging expert, and she's the author of Reframing America, which is a wonderful Substack to read, especially if you are somebody who wants to think a little outside the box and not keep in the mainstream. And she's going to share her perspective on the parties, past, present, and future, and potential future. And she emphasizes the need for change in the role of grassroots movements. Antonia and I had a really long conversation the other day, which I learned so much, even though I think I'm an expert on everything. Clearly, I am not. And I'm going to start off with my first question, because I really would like Antonia to have a lot of time to speak to you. So, Antonia, we talk all the time about the Democratic Party, but the official leadership of the party is supposed to be our leaders. But can you tell everybody, Ashley, what the DNC is?
Sure. Yeah, so the Democratic National Committee is actually the members of a committee of about 550 people, who are mostly elected officials and representatives of state parties. And they are the board of an organization of the same name. So, and that organization has always struggled to figure out what it's supposed to be. So I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn that just about 30 years ago, it was really just a handful of donors who met once a year to buy checks for TV ads. It's always had a core set of responsibilities having to do with the presidential campaign. It organizes the primaries, it hosts the debates, puts on the convention. But in 2001, under Terry McAuliffe, the DNC got out of debt for the first time. It acquired some basic technology and bought a building in DC. And the first campaign to even have what we now know of as a coordinated campaign was John Kerry for president in 2004. So this is something that has been taking baby steps forward for a while now.
So because we are grassroots and because we're all very focused on our state parties, New York and Virginia have something in common in that regard, as we've mentioned many times here before. So tell us what the DNC does to support the state parties and the grassroots, or does not do to support. What do you see as the challenges?
Well, at one point, it's 20 years ago now, Howard Dean created something called the 50-state strategy, in which the DNC would actually pay for 3 to 4 salaries for each state party. And prior to then, many state parties had 1 paid staff, if any. And this is considered to be the high point of DNC support for local parties. But then in 2008, Barack Obama had 3 million volunteers, and they almost formed into a separate independent organization. But the powers that be kind of insisted on bringing Organizing for America inside the DNC, where they sort of isolated it and basically shut it down. So instead of Obama's legacy being this vast grassroots movement, it ended up just being a handful of consulting firms obsessed with email fundraising analytics. So it was a huge missed opportunity there. And then by 2016, the DNC had become a kind of a nonstop buffet of consulting contracts, leaving it nearly bankrupt. And you can read all about this in the amazing book by Donna Brazil called Hacks. What unbelievable train wreck. And then under Tom Perez and Jamie Harrison, the party has become more internally democratic. It's more responsive to members. It created standards for participation by women and people of color. It's developed caucuses for different constituencies. It has made the primary process a little more neutral and a little more transparent. So it is trying, I guess.
That's a nice thing to say, because we're looking to be a little upbeat.
Yeah.
So in your recent article in your newsletter that a lot of us read, you recently wrote about the crisis of leadership at the DNC. And we all know that there's a new DNC chair that's going to be elected. And as grassroots people, we are really familiar with the role the DNC chair can play in terms of setting the tone for acceptance, seat at the table, whatever you want to call it. So what did you mean about the crisis?
Well, I think what I really want people to understand is that the DNC has never understood itself to be responsible for the success of the Democratic Party as a whole, even though, according to its own bylaws, that is actually its job. It has never taken responsibility for example, telling people what a Democrat is and why you should be one. It has never taken responsibility for building the capacity of the party to organize in between election cycles or in non-targeted states. But this is because the elected officials have never let them. Candidates do not want a unified Democratic message because they want to be able to run to the center or away from the party. And they don't want funds that could be used for their campaigns diverted to year-round or long-term capacity building. So they have sort of starved the party of resources at the national level, but especially at the state level. In between campaigns, the state party committees have small, inexperienced, underpaid staff with chronic turnover, so much turnover that they spend most of their time just relearning the basics. So, in my newsletter, I talk about this sort of pattern of self-destructive short-term thinking and how the DNC and whoever becomes its new chair has to really step up and take responsibility for the party as a whole and for the brand and for everything that happens between the peaks of the campaign cycle. And that's really a big deal.
Wow. I have a follow-up question to that.
Mm-hmm.
I know in New York State that we get solicitations to donate to the state party. Now, we don't do that, most of us in the grassroots movement, because we are not at all welcomed by our state party chair. But couldn't the states do fundraising on their own?
Well, the states do, but there is this sort of expectation that all the money they raise needs to go into the coordinated campaign.
Oh.
And so if you're in a state, like I was in Arizona doing a lot of stuff, and the party chair really wanted to build something different. And Kristen Sinema was like, no, that's my money. That's my, you're not allowed to use all this money going to the party. It's for me, for my campaign, not you. That's some of I don't know that every candidate is like that. She was like that.
Okay. That helps.
But yeah,
and you actually emphasized the role of the candidate having a little bit more control than I think most of us understood. I think we didn't quite get that balance of power, so to speak. So tell us because we're all grassroots activists, what does this all mean for the grassroots movement now? And what would you suggest we do to position ourselves as best we can to be useful?
Well, I mean, to understand where we are now, you have to look at the sort of the trajectory of the grassroots movement. About the part of the grassroots movement that started in 2016. There's always been volunteers, there's always been grassroots, but it didn't really, since 2016, it has grown larger, more skilled. Leadership has emerged, is differentiated itself into different groups to take on different tasks. You've got all these like run for something and field team six, and it has grown, it has matured significantly. But I mean, as we stand here now looking at the Democratic Party and all of its failings, our disappointment in it stems largely from the fact that we now expect more of it than anyone has ever expected before. And that's actually really a good thing. So this is the year that the movement has not just matured enough to stand on its own 2 feet, but many people in the movement have become part of the party structure. And we seem to be getting to the sort of the critical mass necessary to create change. And this is evident in the fact that virtually all of the major candidates for DNC chair are putting forth platforms of genuine change, especially in terms of funding long-term organizing, fixing our toxic brand, and even like openly questioning the funding priorities, which is like the third rail of Democratic Party change.
So here's my final question. What do we do if we don't really feel the official party committees are willing to accept us? Because, there is a little bit of a distinction between groups like ours, which are all volunteer and don't have business organized structures, and then what I like to call the in-between groups that have people who are paid. They do a lot of fundraising. They are somewhat a part of the political industrial complex, somewhat. So how do we, our unique brand of grassroots, how do we react if we are still rejected because we are not considered kind of bring in the money people? Although we do, because we're part of giving circles and we're part of a lot of Act Blue events and things like that. But that's the question.
Well, let me see. I can answer that. I think that there's 2 things. One is, we should be active participants in this process, this sort of reform process, because, the party could not function without you. Like you should have a voice in this process. But I think also, have to keep in mind that everybody's chiming in right now. Like everybody's sending in suggestions and information, and little comes of it if we don't have a process that people can use to kind of funnel that input into real change. And so when you guys talk about us having a seat at the table, and what I think is it literally needs to be a seat at the table. Like there has to be a table. For you to have a seat at the table, there has to be a table. There has to be a place that actually brings people together to listen. And, I talked about in Arizona, I created a working group process where that would allow people from outside of the party to come in and have a say on particular topics and particular types of recommendations. People who are interested in data, work on data. People who are interested in messaging, work on messaging. But if the party has to build a process to regularly to build input into the structure of the DNC, and I feel like we need to pressure this new chair, whoever it is, to have a formal structure, not just to say I hear you, but to say there's going to be a table and you're going to have a seat at it. But I also think that if we are not able to get what we want from the party, like if we can't get the Democratic Party to dramatically change and to take on, all the responsibilities that we want it to take on, there's other options. Like in a lot of cases, when there's like the National Democratic Training Committee, National Democratic Redistricting Committee, groups like Run for Something. It makes more sense to just create a different group. Like if you have a specific mission in mind, some people like those sound like party committees, but they're actually just super PACs that people have created to, like a bunch of people were like, the training Democratic Party just does a suck ass job of training. We're going to create a separate entity that focuses and raises money just for that. So that is another option. And then, of course, there is the third option, which is just freaking do it. Like all of this waiting around for permission stuff is like, we got to kind of stop that. We have to, like Network Nova has done, it's like you went out there and you basically created a volunteer community and you create coordinated campaigns, essentially. And then the party, I mean, eventually they just have to come to you because you're the ones with the capacity. So, so just going ahead and doing it, I think is a really critical piece of that. And that way, like you guys now have a body of work that you have done that you can point to and say, we know what the heck we're doing. And that, I think that gives you clout. And, the fact that you have a following and you have a bigger mailing list than the party does. I'm absolutely certain of that. So, so be the party, and that includes also taking over. The party is internally democratic. Mm-hmm. You can run for your local committees and become the people who vote on the people who go to the DNC and vote on the chair. So, get into the system and bring the grassroots literally into that process.
So I want to thank you, and Catherine's going to take over, but I want to say one thing, which is, of course, we can get shit done on our own, but if we were coordinated, we would all be less wasteful, less overlapping. And so to me, there's just no reason why you wouldn't want to do it in a coordinated fashion. That being said, if you can't, then you got to do it on your own. Yeah. So you can work both ways. Thank you so much, Antonia, and I hope everybody subscribes or gives it as a gift this holiday season, because you are wonderful and we really appreciate you. So thank you very much.
Stay 1 second.
My pleasure.
Antonia here. I want to say, call attention to the chat, Antonia, because I love that there's some really great comments in there from our community. And we will have an opportunity in the after chat to talk more in depth about this. I love the different responses and ideas about how we can go moving forward. And some people are really expressing that their local Democratic committees are really great and respectful, and they listen. And I think that's where the grassroots Democratic committees do a lot of great work in Virginia, by the way. We see that. They just need support for sure sometimes, and with that said, I just want to say that we will continue this robust conversation with Antonia in the after chat. So there's a reason to stick around. And I want to say thank you. We had a Patreon, guys. Gilda Johnson donated, join the family, and look at that. We are going to send her a t-shirt. Just tell it right there. Let's send Gilda a t-shirt for Christmas, the Liberty Justice. If you want to be a patron, you want a t-shirt, we'll send you one. Just make sure you tell us your size. You can message Stare and we'll get you a tyranny t-shirt. Okay, thank you, Antonia. We'll see you in the after chat as well. Speaking of tyranny, fighting it, not backing down, I want to bring up Lynlee Thorne, who is a power lunch favorite, the political director of Rural Ground Game. And how you doing, friend?
I'm hanging in. That's a fair characterization. I don't think it surprises people who know me that I'm a little pissed off these days. But I'm trying to harness that rage for action. Because that's what I know we can do with that particular feeling.
I agree. I think that's what we need to do. And I want to say something real quick to give you some little for the ghosts of the present. I don't know if you saw, but there was the ERA publish movement that's been going on. We've been talking about, right? Trying to get Joe Biden to publish it. And I saw that they had a press conference the other day, and the Young Feminist Party, our own Ella Duncan, put her body on the line on Constitution with other young feminists, and they got arrested and went to jail and all that, and then got out and had their first experience of this kind of activity. So I think that rage, these young women stepping up, and it gives me that hope. So let's add that little hope, and then let's kick some butt with you today. But I just wanted to let you know. I know you know Ella, and you're familiar with the young people fighting, and that's why we're here, right? So let's get it started. I know we talked the other day for a long time about your feelings around this. And so let's talk about what's on your mind when we talk about looking at the ghost of the past, the present, and the future. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of great things today, and I also got a chance to catch up with Antonia on our own call recently, and I'm very grateful to have just so many mentors, many of whom are in this room, people that I've learned from. And one thing I want to say to folks who have never been, a guest on this show, trust your instincts. Trust what you're feeling about our party. Trust your own experience here. Trust that more than anything. And we need you to participate. You just heard Antonia say that our party can't function without you. There is not a party without you. And we really need to work towards a party that is deserving of your participation. And we currently don't live in that world. And that is what first initiates some grief and frustration on my part, but then that rage fuel that drives me to be involved in this work. And that comes from a place of care. And I think when we all see something that doesn't feel right, when we are participating in this work and giving our very limited volunteer hours, that work should be honored and cared for by the institution that we are giving that up for. That's not the world we're in. But that is definitely the world that we are going to actively be fighting for. And just like everyone else has said, we get to participate in determining what the party looks like going forward. I hope this link works. If it doesn't, I'll fix it later. I'm dropping a link in the chat because Rural Ground Game is initiating a listening tour. We will be, and this is your opportunity here at the link to submit questions that you would like for us to ask. We are specifically focused on talking to local committee volunteers. Yes, we will talk to committee chairs and people with titles, but we want to go really out of our way to talk to folks who may not have a title at all, except saying that they want to see Democrats do better in the future and figure out how we're going to build power from out of the wilderness. We want to talk to low and mid-level campaign staffers. We want to talk to activists who are working on social justice, environmental issues, all the things that we care about as Democrats, and make sure that we can hear from them. Through this process, we will be offering anonymity, and we will be publishing the results that we find. We want to make it really clear that if we're spending time, a lot of this will be an in-person interaction. Rural Ground Game has been doing this, honestly, for years. And as an organization that specifically focuses on communities that the party has felt very comfortable with neglecting for over a decade at this point, longer, we hear a lot about what it feels like to come to this work and put your sweat equity in and feel like you've been ignored. So we're not going to ignore you. We would like to hear what you have to say. We want to create a process where other people can be involved and facilitate these conversations. So happy to share more details about that to come. But just wanted you all to know that your voice matters, your instincts matter, and we want to compile this information and make sure that we're looking towards the future, because that's where we've got to be.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it when you say we need to go back. Well, let's just call it to the ghosts of the past, this past election in Virginia. I think what we have learned is that this is where our biggest learning comes from, is actually talking to people on committees. It's kind of like, or people that run, even candidates. And what we found is that this is where the information really comes forward about sometimes the breakdown. When a candidate runs for office, they have all these expectations and then they're treated a certain way, and then we lose them, right? People that come in, work on campaigns, sometimes the treatment or what they're told to do or not to. These are really gleans a lot of really good information. Because let's just say, I think what, Democrats, one thing we need to do, and really important work, is to learn from what we've done, and this campaign, my first question would be, but why are we going to run it the same way? Like, why are we just going to roll right into it and spend the same money, billions of dollars on it? I mean, what are we going to do that's going to say to give people confidence,
Absolutely. And we owe that to people. And I think there's a lot of talk about the systems and structures that we can put in place. And I'm here for those conversations. They're important conversations, but we have to do more than, I think, as you said, Katherine, rearrange the furniture. We have
Yeah.
a cultural problem in this party where we come at this work assuming that everyday people who enter a field office for the first time or a Democratic committee for the first time, that they don't have anything meaningful to offer or contribute. We get to a place in campaigns where we say, all we need from you is your dollars and for you to go knock some doors and make some calls or write some postcards. But we don't actually want to hear about a new concept or to innovate with you, or to spend time trying something new and outside of the box. When we need to be about that, we're leaving so much capacity and tremendous talent on the table and untapped into. And this really is a point for me. Jess Piper says this incredibly well, that rural people in particular have been the canaries in the coal mine, because everything that is going to come down from this administration has already been happening in rural communities for a very, very long time. And we have been beating our fist against a party who will not hear us to say, hey, we are here and we are on your side and we're trying to tell you how these people operate. And no one has listened. Across the country, we Democrats continue to spend 3% of their dollars in rural communities. I hate that a campaigning has to be about dollars. We need to end Citizens United and get serious about publicly funded campaigns. And I recognize that I am part of a political action committee. And if we are successful in doing what we need to do, then political action committees will go away and I will happily return to my farm and plant some trees and leave y'all alone. But until that day, we need money to take this seriously. And we continue to make this case. And what we get a lot of the times is, oh, that's cute and bless your heart. And we're so glad to see you out there putting up the good fight. And we need more than that. We need more than that to do this work. So I hate to say it. I'm also going to drop our fundraising link in the chat. Rural Ground Game made over 4 million direct voter contacts this year in both Virginia and Pennsylvania. We did a shit ton of advertising that we had never done before. We do that in collaboration. Local people, grassroots people participate actively in creating our video ads, in writing our billboards, in newspaper ads. Anything out the door from us is not from me. It is from a collection of volunteers and people that we've decided to not just listen to, but take what they have to say seriously and put that in lights.
Yes. And with a wrap up here, I have two things to say. One, I do want to talk to you about the personal, like when we talk about the culture shift, and you said something really striking to me, where to start is like, why, asking each one of us, like, why are we doing this work? We want to talk about like who a Democrat, we want to go out and say, well, why would you vote for a Democrat? Why, I think when we talk about our brand, it's us, right? It's us. And we have to be able to have a response like, why are you doing this work? Right. I mean, when we talk about that in the sense of the culture shift and how us understanding this and really empowering ourselves to do the work will really be the culture shift, especially when we're talking about new leaders or leadership. Right.
Yeah. I think it should be really, really clear to people who we are as Democrats. And I don't think that is clear right now at all. And that is not a challenge that we can't address, but it is one that requires us to invest some time. And what I would like to see from leadership right now that I am not seeing is out loud humility, active curiosity, and understand, like, this should be a gut punch that we should see from our leaders. We should see them flattened out with humility, right? I'm over here looking at the work we've done saying, wow, I wish we had not done this that way. I wish we had done this other thing, but come on, man. Like,
come on, man.
Let's all be okay with saying we got some things wrong here. This is too important. When my 15-year-old gets off the bus and asks me, hey, mom, I am scared for my friend's family. I am scared about these deportations. And can you call Senator Kaine and ask him what he's going to do?
It makes me get all teary-eyed.
And that's the world we're in. This is too serious to not be serious about fixing this shit and having tough conversations about it. We need to take care of each other. We don't want to lose people because we have criticism. But we have got to focus on what is important, and we have failed to do that. But everybody here can help us reject that going forward and get serious about doing this work. Antonia's right. We can do it outside the party, but we deserve to have an institution that we are part of that honors our work. And I'm going to be working on that in any way I can. And I ask you all to join that.
Well, because I'm going to say that also criticism is healthy. If we're like running a business, if we're looking at running a business, you just learn from what maybe didn't work. And if you don't do that, shame on you, because your business is going to fail. And it's not really a criticism. It's what Republicans do all the time. They learn and they adjust. And if we're on the football field playing as a team, let's just say, and looking at somebody's been watching us for years, how we operate, it's pretty easy to go in there and shift some things, one or two, and win the whole game, because we go out there with the same playbook. We're going to do TV ads. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. Pay this guy, pay that guy. And we have told this for years in Virginia, and we see this red creep because our party wants to do kind of the same playbook. Republicans have read it and they go, they're just going to do this. Well, they're constantly.
And you get all the excuses. We did our job in Virginia. I'm not here for that bullshit. We saw backsliding in the cities as well. It's not enough. And we all know that. We all see the national map. Virginia is not a special little snowflake in this problem. We all need to collectively take this seriously and push back against the gaslighting messaging that says this isn't a real thing. We know it's real.
Yeah. Pretty easy. I mean, plus let's talk, and this will bring up our next guest, Nick from Demcast, because when we talk about propaganda, I mean, the big hurdles that in all this context of this conversation, what we know, a huge, really big piece of this is propaganda and the way that we are in this media kind of bubble, or we don't even want to call it, but it is really, truly an issue. So thank you, Lynlee Thorne, for being here. And will you be able to join us in the after chat?
Yeah, I'll hang out. Thank you.
I'm so glad. I'm so exciting. So yes, let's bring up Fennell Norton. Yay. And then introduce our next, because it is really true. This is so important how we get our messaging out. So I'll let you take it on, the Ghosts of Grassroots Future with Nick.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Hi, Nick. I'm so glad that you're here. For those who don't know Nick Knudsen is the executive director of Demcast. And Nick, when you get started, I want to be sure that you sort of do go back to the past a bit and talk about how Demcast began. And some of the numbers are really phenomenal in terms of the work that was done earlier. And then we'll sort of jettison to where we are now.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks so much for having me. And it's an honor to follow Lynlee and Antonia as guests here. So Demcast is founded in 2019 as a 501c4 nonprofit organization working outside the party, as we've been talking about here, to fight MAGA disinformation online. We saw this year pretty clearly, Trump didn't even knock doors. They just talked in the places where they talk, and that was enough. And so we lost in the digital spaces. We lost in the podcasts. We lost in the on social media. We have a whole lot going against us in terms of algorithms and social media CEOs who aren't on our side. And so it's really, really important to organize intentionally online so that we can try and steer the conversation, get facts out there, and fight against the rampant disinformation from the right. So that's why we founded Demcast. We've been at it for about five years, and we've done over $1 billion worth of social media sharing in that time, and we've spent less than $1 million to do that. So, hearing this conversation gets my blood pumping, because I have been beating my head and my fists against what I call the Democratic Party consultorati for that entire time. Trying to get resources to do this important work, and the Democratic politicians just have consultants whispering in their ears, trying to maintain the status quo, because that's how they're making all of the money. through this process, and it's got to stop. And we got to be loud and call for real reform within the party.
So Nick, one of the things that I really want people to hear in terms of this election, so everything that we've heard today, critically important, but also at the end of the day, in terms of, what we have to think about. To your point, I just want to reiterate, Twitter, X, $100 million, the algorithms pointed in a different direction. So that's blocked to a large degree. Facebook suppressed political content. You have IMAX, you have Fox, you have the what we call traditional media not really sharing balanced information in terms of what is true and what is not. And so when you think about that propaganda and how that exploded during this election, one would just be blind if they didn't think about how that impacted the election and what must happen going forward. And when you talked about $1 billion in terms of what Demcast was able to do, this work is incredibly important. So for the 160 or so people who are on the phone today, if you want to think about how you participate, let's talk a little bit about how you're thinking about the future.
Yeah, not sugarcoating here. All of those things have been working against us in the information scape, and it's just going to get worse, unfortunately. Like the corporate media is just going to succumb to Trump's authoritarianism. It's incredibly important to support alternative media sources in this environment. And so one of the things that we intend to do with Demcast and the way that we operate is we, the right wing has their media infrastructure, their podcasts, their radio shows, their cable news, their Facebook influencers, everybody. And then, so they've got all that infrastructure, but then they have this like massive troll army that takes clips from all of those places and spreads them across the internet 24/7, 365 day long. And so, we do need to build up our alternative media infrastructure on the left. 100%. That has to be a part of our strategy moving forward. But the other thing that we need to do to help support the development of that infrastructure is we need an answer to the MAGA troll army of just regular people who are spreading right-wing talking points all day long, every day across the internet. And that's what Demcast is here for. So our whole role is to empower regular people to use their social media accounts to spread good information. We do that as a team in a variety of ways to try and pierce algorithmic bubbles and try and get information in front of people who need to see it. Obviously we post natively from our own social media accounts, and then we mutually amplify each other to get more eyeballs on those social media posts. But we also do what we call social media storming, social media swarming, where we all jump on the internet at the same time to talk about the same thing with the same talking points. And that way we can induce trends. And when you induce trends, you can pierce through those algorithmic bubbles that are keeping people's content, homogeneous politically. We also do content curation and dissemination as an organization. So we try and find that content. We try and locate whatever progressive streamer on YouTube is making a good point. We want to flip that and spread that information across the internet. We do algorithmic boosting as a team. That means, so algorithms on social media platforms operate through interaction. So if a post is getting interacted with a lot, then the algorithm's going to pluck that post out and say, we should show this post to other people because it's generating a lot of activity. So we can actually, as people intentionally algorithmically boost posts that are strategic and need to be seen by more people so that the algorithm will show it to more people. Also disruptive commenting. We can go into MAGA posts that are spreading across the internet and share disruptive information in comment sections, and then mutually amplify those disruptive comments to help them rise in the comments sections up toward the top. These are like, it sounds weird and very intentional, but like that's kind of where we are. And this is the kind of stuff that the other side does. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to cross-pollinate across platforms. We want to take TikTok videos and put them on Blue Sky. We want to take Twitter posts and take a screenshot of those and take them over to Instagram so that we can cross-pollinate the different voices from our side of the movement and just build more of a drumbeat and take advantage of the content that our side is putting out. So we can do this, and Demcast is here to help train people to do this, and we can talk about how people can get involved too.
So that's one of the things that I think is really important. So people don't have to lose their own identities wherever you are, but what you do get is the ability to participate when you can. So that's why I think it's so important, and I think it's so timely when we're talking about this, the messaging or the information actually bursting through and getting it. People here on this call today have the ability to join forces here. And despite whatever you do with your friends and your family and all of that, you get to get really good curated information that when you choose to, that you can go into Reach and pull out that information and share valuable information. There was something really important that happened last week in terms of some really important medical information that needed to get out. Can you just talk briefly about that and what happened?
Yeah, so there's a network of a referral network of physicians called a Safe Choice. This is a network that provides medication abortion services via telehealth to everyone across the country. Still, everyone. It is still available to everybody, and it's safe and it's secure. But a lot of people don't know about it. So we did a social media storm across all social platforms and got about 2 million views on posts about this referral network. And they got in contact with us afterwards and said that they had more activity in terms of people offering support and referrals, that they had the biggest one-day spike that they've ever had. And so we can spread, when we work together online, this is like digital door knocking, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is like taking information and sharing it with the people who need to hear it. And we can make an impact for people, and we're going to need to come together online during the Trump administration, the upcoming Trump administration, to have each other's backs and to spread the truth, because it's going to be a disinformation firestorm.
So, Nick, I don't know how long you'll be able to stay or join us for at least a little while in the after chat. And we'll also make sure that all the links are in to be able to join Demcast, to be able to join Reach. I'm expecting that, I know some of you are already on it, so I'm expecting 157 signups. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully you'll be able to join us in the after chat to talk a little bit more. Thank you so much, Nick, and for all the work that Demcast does. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Hey, thank you, Nick. Thank you. I mean, I'm going to say, Fennell, what a great show. The Ghosts of Grassroots, past, present, and future. I think what a great discussion we're going to have in the after chat. But some little bit of show business. I want to pop Susan Wagner in here. Pop in. I want to say thank you to Susan joining us for the national show, the last show of the season. I want to remind everybody we'll be back January 3rd with who?
Jess Piper.
Yes, Jess Piper. And again, get this great t-shirt. I'm going to show my products here. This is super great. I have a box full for all my friends, a little bit of a great t-shirt to remind us that we got to keep fighting what's going to be coming at us. I want to thank our guest today. I mean,
And it's very Andy Warhol like, Katherine.
it is. Yeah, the design is really colorful. But thank you to Antonia Scatton for being here. And make sure you follow her on her and Reframing America. Lynlee Thorne, political director, Rural Ground Game, bringing it. We're doing more billboards. Let's start campaigning now, as we say.
The
And
digital drumbeat.
the digital drumbeat. Nick Knudsen, founder, executive director of Demcast. What great stuff we learned today. And I'm going to say that one thing I've been thinking about is we need to put a bill in now in Virginia about misinformation. We shouldn't let them own that narrative, and we can have that discussion, right? Why don't we do something at the legislative level? That's just my idea. I'm going to bring over to the after chat, but I'm thinking, okay, you can say you can lie. They're passing these bills, freedom of expression. Let's stop it. Maybe we can do something like that in Virginia. Can't lie in Virginia. How about that?
If nothing else, you bring attention to the issue. Even if you're not successful, you bring attention to the issue and then you get a groundswell. So sometimes you do things not because you think you're going to be successful the first time out, but it gets it on the, on the playing field so people combat at it.
Yeah. Because they have a bill up right now saying that they can just lie and social media doesn't have to take. So we need to, we can be counted.
You're not allowed to lie.
Not allowed to lie. We're going to wash your mouth out with soap.
With soap, right.
Get a lot of soap. Yeah. So I want to say to everybody in the room, if you can't stay with us in the after chat, wishing you a really great holiday season. And I'm just excited that we had this honor this last so many years. And 2024 was just awesome to be here and bring you this programming. And make sure you say the date for the Women's Summit. They'll be coming up on June 27th and 29th. And we will have some exciting news. And especially we'll announce to our patrons that we will be also the Friday Power Lunch moving to Substack. So when you come back, our platform, we're going to join all the other great content creators because that's what we do too. But our patrons will be special, very special, because we want to make sure that they move over with us and that they have a special place on Substack with us. So we're so excited about that. So yes, make sure you follow us on social media, and it is always up to us. That's our tagline, and it is. And let's empower the grassroots. Let's make sure that we keep at it. And thank you, Gilda Johnson, for joining the patron family. So, all right, get that t-shirt. Support us. We'll see you on the other side.